I'm Elisa and I am the Scrappy Wife behind scrappywife.com, and today I have an art journal process video for you. It has been a little bit of time since I have art journaled, and we've been on vacation, tons of summer fun, but my kids are headed back to school and I'm excited to jump back into art journaling. And I will admit, sometimes when it's been a while, it can be intimidating jumping into a blank page. And I'm not really sure what I want to do, except I have some newer supplies that I'm wanting to play with. And so I'm just gonna let this kind of be a free time. I'm gonna turn on the camera. You guys can kind of watch me go. I'm gonna use these Midline Highlighters, which I know sounds like a weird art journaling tool, but I picked these up at Target and I'm pretty excited to try them out. And then I have some stencils that I have been wanting to use that I picked up earlier this summer and haven't found a place to use them yet. So I am just going to start putting color on the page and experimenting. So I thought I'd go ahead and turn on the camera and you guys can follow along. Sometimes it is just fun to play. You don't have to have the ending product in mind. You can just play with color and with texture and with shapes, and it can be a lot of fun. So let's have a good time playing. I'll put you on fast forward. Here we go. I will tell you right off that I did have a great time playing. In fact, I had so much fun that I had no idea that my camera stopped recording at one point. So the very ending of this page isn't captured on film because I was just rocking out and doing my thing with music in the background and loving being in my art journal, and I had no idea it wasn't recording. So, oh well. All right. As I started, like I said, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I had these new Midline highlighters and I was excited to use them, so I pretty much just used all of them. I started with these lines and wanted to try out all the colors, and you'll see me kind of go through, and I'm just going to add diagonal color across the whole page as my starting point and to get my eyes used to these bright colors. Plus, it's totally that time of year of school supplies. They are my favorite. I've loved school supplies since I was little. What is your favorite school supply? Let me know in the comments below. Even though I'm an adult, I still kind of live for school supply season. So playing with these highlighters was super relaxing, super kind of just filled my bucket. Just seeing all of the color come onto the page and having fun with it just felt really great to do this repetitive motion of drawing the lines and to just relax and be in my craft room. I originally planned this page to just be half a page, just stay here on the right side, which is why I just have the color there on the right. And I started with my stencils. These are smaller stencils, but I knew I was going to use them in segments. And I grabbed this dish that I bought from Hobby Lobby at some point during the summer because I loved its shape, and decided to add that shape in the corner, and I'm going to fill that shape with the stencil. So you can see me kind of measuring out. And in my head, I thought, well, I'll make it look like a sun. I'll have some bursts coming out of it. And I grabbed for my black marker, these are Le Plume markers, and so I traced this line right here, and I decided, you know what, instead of straight lines for my sunburst, I'm going to go with a wave because I like the contrast of the straight lines in the background and the wave kind of coming off of here. And then I just thicken up the lines to make them nice and bold. And this is where I'm going to start to break up all of that color. It is a lot of color and it's in your face, and I love in your face color, but I'm going to use my stencils to kind of cover it up. These are what is called masking stencils. So they work differently than regular stencils. I mean, they work the same where you put them down and then you put paint or ink over them. But the part that's covered up is what comes through, if that makes sense. It's kind of the opposite of what would be cut out of a normal stencil. That's why they're called masking stencils, and I am in love with masking stencils. I grabbed my Dilutions black paint thinking that it will work fantastic for covering up this stencil, and I'm actually just going to use my finger, but I quickly find out it is dry. It has just dried up and is not, I try, I force it, I try, it's just not going to work. So instead of continuing to force it, I'm going to take that off. I end up spraying the back of my stencil with this pixie spray, and that just keeps it in place. It's not a permanent thing, but it keeps it in place while I'm working. So I'm spraying it off camera, and then I'll come place it right back over where I painted. And I'm gonna decide to go a different direction because the black just is not working. And what I'm gonna do is go with a navy blue. This is Jane Davenport. It's a navy blue acrylic paint, and I like Jane Davenport paints because it dries without a sheen to it, so it actually makes it really easy to work with in art journaling because you can write over it, you can do a lot of things over it. So I'm a big fan of her acrylic paint. So I'm going to use that navy blue. It covers up the black pretty well and actually kind of makes some cool blending up there in the corner. I paint over the entire stencil within the lines that I have drawn there, which is why I did the lines first. I'm going to fill that entire space, and then you'll see it's a very cool effect when you finally pull up the stencil and you get the neat impression behind it. Wait for it. This is my favorite part every time. It's so satisfying to pull up the stencil. Ta-da! And see, that tones down a lot of that color, but it's still vibrant and busy, which I'm loving. So I grab another stencil. I also spray it with the pixie spray. I will never again use a stencil without this pixie spray. It is fantastic for keeping the stencil in place. I get crisper lines and images. I am loving it. So I'm going with the swirl here. Again, I'm sticking with the navy blue instead of a black. And I love the impression it's getting, and I'm sticking in that one ray up there, pulling it off, and you end up with a super cool pattern. And then I start to get a little bit ambitious. So my stencil already has paint on it. I'm sticking with that swirl stencil, and I am going to place it down right over on the third ray right there, and I'm just gonna risk it because it already has paint. I was afraid it might get places, and that's okay with me. And here is where you can see that I decide to go a little bit crazy, and I just start painting on the other side. This was when my art journal entry started having a mind of its own. I was like, well, it's silly. It's weird if it stops right there. It's certainly going to spill over to the other page. It just feels more organic like that. So I added it right there, and then again, I'm reusing my stencil, and this time was really, I was really careful. I started to get a little sloppy, a little too much paint on my brush, but that's okay. I was in the groove and creating and having a great time with these stencils. This masking technique with stencils is so fun to do, and it's so satisfying, and I feel like it makes me look like a better artist than I am. So it gets a little sloppy as it gets over to the left side of the spread, but I don't mind. I just want to make sure it's really dry because the next stencil I use is going to touch the paint on both sides. And originally I think I'm going to use this small flower stencil, but there's a lot of busy pattern going on the page. So instead I grabbed this large 12 by 12 stencil because the patterns that are on it are a little bit bolder, bigger, and I think they will contrast well with the small swirly pattern and the other pattern that is in the bottom corner. So I find a place where I want to put that large stencil, and I'm going to follow the same procedure of doing the pixie spray and then filling it in with navy blue paint. Once that section is dry, I do one last stencil placement here on the bottom. I'm going to take or utilize these rainbows down here and adding in the navy blue. And again, I continue on to the left side of the spread because I figured, hey, why not? Apparently I'm going on to that side of the page anyway, and we will just see what happens. And I really didn't have any rhyme or reason as to what part of the stencil I was using or how far I was going. I was just kind of in the groove and feeling it and seeing what came out. So now that I have gone over to the left side of the page, I figured, oh, I guess I'm gonna have to deal with this left side. I can't just pretend it never happened. So I grabbed yet another stencil. I feel like, do you all ever get in the groove of using one kind of craft supply? I feel like this particular entry is the art journal entry of stencils because I wanted to use all of the stencils. I grabbed this Jane Davenport stencil. I believe it came in a package, probably with a set of her paints. Those came with stencils for a while, and I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do, if I'm going to just paint through the stencil or ink. And what I end up deciding, I use the Pixie spray again to hold it in place, and I'm going to just trace. I'm going to trace out that beautiful girl, and the reason I go with that is because I'm not totally sure what I want to do with her yet. I'm not sure if I want her to have color. I'm not sure if she's going to be kind of navy blue and white and there's going to be kind of a wash of color. So I just go with the tracing. That way she's on the page because I knew I wanted her there. And then I just go on to the next thing. When I'm working in art journaling, I highly encourage you to do this. If you get stuck or if you're not sure what the next step is, jump to a different part of the entry. Go look at a different part of the page. Go to a different page. Just jump around. There's not necessarily a process that you have to do every time. Just go with what your creativity is telling you. So when I reach a point that, oh man, I'm not sure what I want to do next, I just jump to something else that feels good over on that entry, and then I will come back and address that girl later on. I feel like that's a good just life lesson. Just sometimes when you feel stuck, you just have to do the next right thing. So for me, the next right thing was grabbing this numbered stencil, again, the page of stencils. And this time I am using some Ranger texture paste, and it is white. I decided not to color it, thinking that I'm going to add color over the top of it later. And I'm just using my finger. There's all kinds of tools that you can use for, and like little spatulas and things for spreading texture paste. For me, when I'm art journaling especially, I like to get my hands dirty. I like to get into the product and into the paint and ruin manicures and all that business. So here I'm adding these textured numbers all on the left side of the page. I love the look of these numbers, and I just stick with white texture paste. Actually left those textured numbers, that texture paste, to dry a good long while. So I'm going to come in with the hair because I'm like, okay, I'm going to deal with this girl. She needs hair, and I decided to go with gold because why not? Golden hair, gorgeous. And if I could have solid gold hair, that would be beautiful. So I start adding some hair, and as I'm going, you can see I'm like, oh my goodness, her head is flat. I got to add some more dimension, and I'm trying not to fill in every last little strand of hair. I get a little bit crazy after a while, but you don't have, it doesn't have to be solid. It's an art journal. You can add your own, I don't know, you can let your eye finish the lines for you. You don't have to sketch out every last line. And that's something I picked up just from watching Jane Davenport on her YouTube channel, is that it doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes it's fun to let it go with your imagination. I like how the rainbows down at the bottom kind of turn into her chest in a way. It kind of makes a cool dress. I like how that ends up looking. I like the golden hair, and I decide, okay, I'm going to add a little bit more texture, and then I'm going to start to fill in just some color. What am I going to do with the coloring on this girl? So I'm going to come in with this peachy color. It's, again, a Jane Davenport acrylic paint that I'm using, and I'm just going to start to fill in a little bit of her skin tone. Again, I don't feel like it needs to be solid, and when I'm working on like a girl or just a human form, sometimes filling in solid is really intimidating. I'm not great at shading, and so the way I kind of do shading is by not doing shading, if that makes sense, by not filling things in a solid way and letting the white page be some of the shading. That might not be the right way, but that's how I'm doing it. And although I'm not a trained artist, I do have fun working with it, and I think that's the whole point of the art journal anyway. This is just an exercise for me, an exercise in creativity, and I don't think there is a right or wrong way to do it. So you can just try what works for you, what your eye likes, and kind of go with that. So I start filling in some of her shading, and then I decide, well, you can't see the lines anymore. So what I'm going to do is come back with navy blue, because I'm trying to bring it over all the way from the right side of the page, include some navy blue. So instead of coming back in with black, that's why I decide to add a little more dimension to her eyes, to her cheeks, and to her nose. And I highlight and add some shadow there with the navy blue. Her cheeks are looking a little flat to me, so I'm going to take this kind of mauve color and add, it's quite a bit of rouge, quite a bit of blush, but that's okay. A little crazy on the blush there, and then I use it for shading underneath, and it gets a little navy blue in it, but that's okay. I think it adds a nice dimension to her face, and I'm going to use one of my highlighters I used on the right side and color in her lips, trying to leave just that little bit of white highlight to add that glisten to her lips. This is where I am almost about, my camera's about to stop, so you're gonna miss all that happens here on the left side. So let me just tell you what I end up doing. I'm gonna trace her outline with the highlighters, kind of in the same way that I did on the other side of the page, but this time I'm following a curved line, following her form, adding some different highlighter colors, but I only do 3 because of 2 reasons. I didn't want to overwhelm it with color again over here on this side, and the highlighter had a little bit of trouble over the texture paste that I wasn't expecting. Usually when I paint over texture paste, it takes it very well. The highlighter, not so much. So I add a few colors of highlighter, and then I'm going to come back with that same navy blue and paint out over the texture paste. And I love that the numbers end up with that same navy blue texture. I love that they are seemingly in the background, even though they are raised up, if that even makes sense. I'm not sure that it does, but I like how it comes out in the end. So you'll see in the ending pictures a lot of navy blue, and what I decide to do also is come back with my white Signo gel pen, which is fantastic for writing and art journaling, and it works great over these Jane Davenport acrylic paints because they do dry with a flatness to them. And so I add the title, I add a lot of detail work with the white Signo gel pen, and the title I decide to go with is I Am a Beautiful Mess, because it looks like a crazy, chaotic mess behind this girl, and sometimes I feel like that's what my life is, but it is beautiful and I will embrace it every single day. So right here you see me, I'm gonna get ready for the paint. I'll start painting and then we will go to a whiteout and I will show you the end. I really hope you enjoyed this art journaling video. I had a great time jumping back into it. It's been a while since I art journaled, and it was fun to just put color and texture on the page. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider hitting that subscribe button. Also hit that bell notification button to be the first to know when I release a new video. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and as always, keep it creative.